Assalamualaikum and good day everyone.
Especially to our proctor, Ma'am Janina Sinswat.
And we are the reporter number 12. And for today's video, we are going to discuss the chapter 18, the Misfortunes in Madrid, followed by
Chapter 19, which is El Filibusterismo.
But before we start our proper discussion, let us introduce ourselves first. I am Mansour Ismael Javier from College of Public Affairs and Governance, Bachelor of Public Administration.
And I am Naima Manginulinding from the College of Agriculture, major in Extension Education.
Overview. August 1890, Rizal arrived in Madrid. He tried all legal means to seek justice for his family and Calamba tenants, but failed. Leonor Rivera married a British Englishman, which made his burden even worse. Failure to get justice for his family. Upon arrival in Madrid, Rizal sought the help of Filipino colony, the Asociación Hispano-Filipina, and liberal Spanish newspaper. M.H. Del Pilar acted as his lawyer together with Dr. Dominador Gomez, secretary of the Asociación Hispano-Filipina. He called on Minister of Colony, Senior Fabi, to protest the injustice committed by the Gobernador General and the Dominicans. Early on August 1890, Rizal arrived in Madrid. Upon his arrival in Madrid, Rizal immediately sought help of the Filipino colony, the Asociación Hispano-Filipina, and the liberal Spanish newspaper, and securing the justice for his opposed Calamba tenants. Marcelo H. Del Pilar acted as Rizal's lawyer together with Dr. Dominador Gomez, secretary of Asociación Hispano-Filipina. He called on Minister of Colony, Senior Fabi, to protest the injustice committed by the Gobernador General and the Dominican press, but nothing came out with the interview. The El Resumen, a Madrid newspaper, sympathized with the Filipino cause, said to cover the ears, open the pores, and fold the arms. This is the Spanish colony policy. More terrible news reached Rizal. He received an ejectment order from his brother-in-law, Silvestre Hidalgo, against Francisco Rizal and other Calamba tenants from Saturnina. He learned to deportation of Franciano, and parents were forcibly ejected from their home. As Rizal was wagging for justice, he received a terrible message, the ejectment order from his brother-in-law, Silvestre Hidalgo, by the Dominican against Francisco Rizal, his father, and other Calamba tenants. The Calamba tenants, including his family, was forcibly ejected from their home by the Dominican priest. From his sister Saturnina, he learned of the deportation of Franciano Antonio Lopez, Silvestre, Tio, and Nandoy to Mindoro. They are Rizal's relatives, and also they were arrested in Calamba and were shifted out from Manila on September 6, 1890. That is why Rizal had the urge to see the Queen, Maria Cristina, to bring about his problem, but he failed because he doesn't not have the friend who is influential and have a power that could help him meet the Queen. Rizal's ideology to panganiban. After a short time, Rizal learned that his friend and co-worker in propaganda movement, Jose Maria Panganiban, died in Barcelona due to illness. He mourned the passing of his bicol hero and made a eulogy for him. Rizal's ideology, while Rizal failed to receive justice for his family and barely started to settle in Madrid, he received a message that his friend and co-worker, Jose Maria Panganiban, who was with him in propaganda movement, died in Barcelona on August 19, 1890, at the age of 27 due to illness. Rizal wrote a great eulogy to him, describing how great he was and how fortunate our nation was he died. He deeply mourned because of the death of his friend. Rizal wrote a great eulogy to Panganiban with a sorrowing heart. Panganiban, the excellent companion of labor and difficulty, that amiable friend and countryman beloved has described to be the tomb at the early age of 27 years. We just catch his last whisper, saw him expire in our arms. As it seems we are listening to his praises, saturated with energetic patriotism. Aborted duel with Antonio Luna. During the social reunion of Filipinos in Madrid, Antonio Luna became drunk. Because of Antonio Luna's alcohol, Mine started uttering unsavory remarks about Nelly Bosted, whom he had a frustrated romance with. Rizal heard him and became angry because of his scandalous remarks and challenged Luna to a duel. End of August 1890, Rizal attended a social reunion of the Filipinos. Wine was served. There was a time Rizal almost fought a duel with the two other famous fellow Filipino citizens, Antonio Luna and Ritana. Rizal and Luna almost dueled because of a girl. The girl named Nelly Bosted, a beautiful mestiza of English and Spanish descent. Luna felt he had the first claim on Nelly Bosted, but Bosted appealed to become infuriated with Rizal. Later on, Bosted became the many girlfriend of Rizal. Antonio Luna became drunk. One boys' night out, Luna reported he got drunk and said nasty things about Bosted. Because Luna blamed Rizal for his failure to win Nelly Bosted, Rizal heard Luna and challenged him to a duel. Rizal was a better pistol shooter than Luna, but Luna chose to have sword fight because Luna is better swordsman than Rizal. Other Filipino tried to stop them. Luna realized made a fool of himself and apologized for his bad remarks about Nelly Bosted. Rizal accepted his apology and then became a good friend again. Rizal challenged Ritana for a duel.
Let us now move to Rizal challenge Retana for duel. So Retana, a talented Spanish scholar, was then a phrase agent of friars in Spanish. He used to attack the Filipinos, including Rizal. He wrote an article in La Época asserting that the family and friends of Rizal have not paid their rents for they were rejected from their lands. The insult stirred Rizal to action and challenged Retana for a duel. meaning to say, Wenceslao Aretana was a 19th century Spanish civil servant, advisor, administrator, writer, biographer, political commentator, publisher, and bibliophile, and he was a bitter enemy of Rizal in Spain. He impudently wrote an article in La Época, an anti-Filipino newspaper in Madrid. Wenceslao E. Retana, a talented scholar and a journalist paid by the Friars to attack Filipinos, including Rizal, asserting that the family and friends of Rizal have not paid their rents, so that they were ejected from their land in Calamba by the Dominicans. Rizal was insulted on the article that Retana wrote, and he challenged Retana for a duel. Only Retana's blood on apology could vindicate the good name of Rizal families. And friends Retana believe that discretion is the better part of failure, and more to save his own skin. Retana at once published a retraction and an apology in the newspaper. The incident silenced Retana's fame, and developed a great admiration for Rizal. Retana subsequently used a public apology, and a duel was called of Retana, and Rizal later became a very good friends.
Infidelity of Leonor Rivera. One night in autumn of 1890, Rizal and some friends attended a play at Theater Apollo and lost his gold watch chain with a locket containing the picture of Leonor Rivera. The loss of the locket proven to be a bad omen. Early in December 1890, Rizal received a letter from Leonor announcing her coming marriage to an Englishman. So, one night, Rizal and his friend attended a play at Theater Apollo, and there he lost his gold watch chain with a locket containing the picture of Leonor Rivera, his beloved sweetheart. Loss of the locket proved to be a bad omen. On December 1890, with the cold wind of winter sweeping across the slivering city, Rizal received a letter from his fiancée, Leonor Rivera, announcing her coming marriage with an Englishman named Henry Charles Keeping, which is the choice of her mother, and asking his forgiveness. He was stunned and his heart broke. Weeks passed before Rizal confined to his friend Vladimir Blumentritt. Blumentritt consoled him by sending comforting letters stating that Leonor is not a woman to Rizal, and that he is loved with a nobler woman and the motherland. His letter was a great blow to him. He was stunned, his eye dimmed with tears, and his heart broke. On February 15, 1891, several agonizing weeks passed before he could confide to his best friend, Blumentritt. Blumentritt sent him a comforting letter. 3 months later, Blumentritt sent another letter. So this is the letter sent by Blumentritt to Rizal. I am grieved with all my heart that you have lost the girl whom you were engaged, but if she was able to renounce a Rizal. She did not possess the nobility of pure spirit. She is like a child who casts away a diamond the size of pebble. In other words, she is not the woman for Rizal by Blumentritt. Rizal and Del Pilar rivalry.
Let us now proceed in Rizal del Pilar rivalry. Rizal was then a disputed leader of the Filipino in Europe. On the other hand, Del Pilar, the fearless lower journalist, was gaining prestige in Madrid for his La Solidaridad. Solidaridad. He pursued the periodical from Pablo Rayanzales and replaced Graciano Lopez Jaena as its editor. Rizal tried to abuse his compatriots and his own idealism for the belief that to win the respect of the Spanish people, they must possess high standard of morality, dignity, and spirit of sacrifices. So, meaning to say, closing days of 1890, there arose an unfortunate rivalry between Rizal and Del Pilar for supremacy. Rizal idealism. Rizal tried to imbue his compatriots with his own idealism. He believed that to gain prestige of the propaganda movement and to win the respect of the Spanish people, so they must possess high standard of morality, dignity, and spirit of sacrifice. So unfortunately, his idealism was not shared. Some of his supporters turned on the leadership of Del Pilar. His idealism was not shared by Priebolo's countrymen who loved wine, women, and cards. Some of his former admirers turned against him because they resented his interference in their private lives. They became supporters of Del Pilar. So to avert the breakup between Rizal and MS Del Pilar, the Filipino in Madrid met on January 1, 1891 to patch of their differences. So meaning, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, a Filipino writer, lower journalism, a journalist and Freemason, also known by his pen name Plaridel, gained prestige in Madrid for his vigorous editorials in La Solidaridad, which he became to own. He had persuaded his fortnightly predical from Pablo Rianzales, its proprietor, and had replaced Graciano Lopez Jaena and its editor. His periodical's editorial policy was opposite to Rizal political views. The editorial policy and La Solidaridad under his management enhanced the cleavage between Rizal and him. January 1, 1891, about 90 Filipinos in Madrid met to patch up their differences and to intensify the campaign for reform. So It was decided in his meeting that the leader called responsible be chosen to direct the affair of the Filipino community and to determine the editorial policy of La Solidaridad. So now, Del Pilar opposed on the ground that it was a private enterprise. However, he was willing to publish article that should express the aspiration of Filipino people. So, the proportion to place the La Solidaridad under the control of the responsible aba, was abandoned. It was agreed that the responsible was elected the two-third nodes of the Filipino communities. So meaning, they decide that a leader called the responsible be chosen to direct the affair of the Filipino community and to determine the editorial policy of La Solidaridad. He was willing to publish articles that would express the aspirations and demand of the Filipino people. Owing Del Pilar opposition, the meeting proceeded to the business of electing responsible. It was agreed that their responsible should be elected by two-thirds vote of the Filipinos.
Rizal abdicate his leadership. During the election, the Filipino were divided into two camps, the Rizalistas and Pilaristas. Having obtained two-thirds the votes, Rizal became the responsible. Rizal graciously declined the position. He knew that some of his compatriots who supported Del Pilar despised or disliked him. He prepared to abdicate his leadership rather than be the cause of disunity and bitterness among his countrymen. So the Filipinos were divided into two camps, the Rizalistas and Pilaristas. First and the second day of voting, Rizal won, but he didn't obtain the required two-thirds votes to responsible. On the third day of voting, Rizal won and became the responsible because of Mariano Fonzi that appealed to his countrymen to vote for Rizal. Rizal graciously declined the converted position. He referred to abdicate his leadership rather than be a cause of disunity and bitterness among his countrymen. Adios, Madrid. Rizal wrote a brief note thanking his compatriots for electing him as responsible. He packed up his bags, paid his bills, and boarded a train, leaving for Biarritz. It was the last time he saw Madrid. So Rizal wrote a brief note thanking his compatriots for electing him as responsible. Suddenly, he packed up his bags, paid his bills, and boarded a train, leaving for Biarritz. As he gazed through the window of his train at the city of Madrid, he was happy during his first journey on 1882 to 1885, but unhappy on his second visit on 1890 to 1891. It was the last time he saw Madrid. Back to Brazil. February 1891, Rizal left Madrid and proceeded to Biarritz, where he was a welcome guest of the boasted at their Villa Eliada. He wrote to Josema Basa expressing his wish to live in Hong Kong and practice medicine. Middle of April 1891, Rizal returned to Brussels for one reason, to finish his second novel, which is El Filibusterismo. So now, let's proceed to chapter 19, El Filibusterismo.
So before we start to discuss El Filibusterismo, let me explain why Jose Rizal wrote this novel or El Filibusterismo and what is his purpose. So, to defend Filipino people from foreign accusation of lawlessness and lack of knowledge, and to show how Filipino people living during Spanish colonial period and the cries and woes of his countrymen against abuse official. So, El Filibusterismo, also known as the Reign of Greed. It is the sequel of Noli Me Tangere. So, let's start the basic information about this novel or El Filibusterismo before we proceed in the history and the summary of this novel. So, El Filibusterismo is the second novel or a sequel of Noli Me Tangere, written by Dr. Jose Rizal, and it was written in Spanish language. Like the Noli Me Tangere, we know before that if we translate the Noli Me Tangere in English is the social cancer, while the El Filibusterismo in English is the reign of greed. So it was dedicated to the three martyred priests, namely Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora. They are commonly known as Gomburja. So this novel of Dr. Jose Rizal was full of revenge and anger. It encouraged the people who experience abuse to rebel and seek of justice using violent means. So if Noli Me Tangere described the society during the Spanish colonial period in the Philippines, so El Filibusterismo encouraged the people to rise and unite the assert reform with violent means. So to the memory of the priests, Don Mariano Gomez, Don Jose Burgos, and Don Jacinto Zamora, executed in the Bagumbayan field on the 17th of February 1872. Rizal had the right to dedicate his work to them as a victims of the evil which he undertook to combat. So this novel is somehow cruel than the first novel of Dr. Jose Rizal, which is the Noli Me Tangere. The novel wants the reader to have an idea of Rizal's concept of a violent and bloody revolution. So this novel is the cycle of emotion. It is the political novel work of the head and book of hope. It consists of sorrow, bitterness, hatred, pain, and violence. As according to Rizal, in order to know the destiny of a nation, it is necessary to open the book of its past. So let us now proceed the history of El Filibusterismo. So Rizal began to write El Filibusterismo, or the second novel, in October 1887 while he was in Calamba. After finish his studies, and that time he was finished his study in Europe. Take note that the El Filibusterismo started to write in Calamba, unlike the Noli Me Tangere started in other country. So in 1888 in London, he revised the flat Ain chapter, and when he in Paris, he have revision, and then he continued to write the second novel in Paris. And later on, he moved to Brazil in Belgium because of cost of living or financial is cheap compared to other countries like Europe, and because of less distraction that he encountered in his environment, so that he cannot focus to write the second novel, which is El Filibusterismo. So in March 29, 1891, he finally completed his second novel in Briatis or in France. Noli Me Tangere is finished when he in Germany, and he print in Germany also. So on September 18, 1891, the novel was published in Ghent, Belgium, so that he print his book in Belgium. So let us now proceed in the printing of the second novel, which is El Filibusterismo. So the publisher, 8 Mayer van Loo Phrase, number 66 Vianderen Street, who was willing to print his book on installment basis. So he found his jewel in order to pay the down payment and early partial expenses during the printing of the novel. So Rizal became desperate because his funds were running low. He received some money from Basa and 200 from Rodriguez. Areas for the copies of Morgan's Sucesos sold in Manila, but these funds were also used up. So according to Valentin Ventura, when everything seemed lost, help come from unexpected sources. So Valentin Ventura learned of Rizal's situation and immediately sent him the necessary funds with his financial in the printing of El Filibusterismo, the second novel of Dr. Jose Rizal. So after printing the novel, he sent a 2 copy to Hong Kong, and one is to his friend, namely Basa, and the one is to Sixto Leofes. And the original copy of novel is he gave to Valentin Ventura with a photograph of Rizal.
So accordingly, Rizal is struggling in terms of financial, so the money was not enough to publish the book, the novel, which is the El Filibusterismo.
So meaning, the theme and plot of El Filibusterismo was meant to convey the message of the present system of government in the Philippines through corrupt officials dominated by the friars can lead to the downfall of Spain. Rizal contribute essays, poems, allegories, and editorials to the Spanish newspaper. Most of his writing, both in his essays and editorials, centered on individual rights and freedom, especially for the Filipino people. So, as part of his reform, he even called for the illusion of the Philippines to become a province of Spain. Among his best work, he had to stand out from the rest, Noli Me Tangere, and the second is the El Filibusterismo. By the way, let me share this information to you because I did not mention in the chapter of Noli Me Tangere. So, Dr. Jose Rizal, in his first novel, which is Noli Me Tangere, he decided to cut some chapter because it is consists of 64 chapters. So he decided to cut the chapter about Elias and Salome. So, Elias and Salome have a relationship. So why Rizal did not include this? So as according to Dr. Jose Rizal, he did not include this because of lack of funds. He have no financial to publish the other chapter, which is the chapters of Nolimi Tangere. So, going back to the history of El Filibusterismo. Again, we have Valentin Ventura that helped to Rizal for publishing and print the second novel, which is El Filibusterismo. So, this novel tells us how cruel and how fiercely evil the Spaniard was. It is also tackled the bravery of the Filipino community. It showed the unimagined bravery of our community on fighting the greedings and cruelty of the Spaniard people.
So now let's proceed to the manuscript of El Filibusterismo. The original manuscript of El Filibusterismo in Rizal's own handwriting is now preserved in Filipina Division of Bureau of Public Libraries, Manila. It had been acquired by the Philippine government from Valentin Ventura for 10,000 pesos. It consists of 279 pages of long sheets of paper. The title page of El Filibusterismo consists an inscription written by Ferdinand Blumentritt, features that didn't appear in the printed book. So the original copy of El Filibusterismo is a handwritten of Jose Rizal to present the Filipino in Manila and give a societal message that the citizens should be the leaders of its governing body and not the other way around. And the people who want to change something or give voice to those who suffers injustice.
So now we're moving on the character of El Filibusterismo. So let's begin the main character, Simon. The continuation of the character of Cristomo Ibarra, distinguished as a wealthy jeweler bent on starting a revolution. Using his wealth, he encouraged the Filipino who experienced abuse to join him in his rebellion against the church and the government. So meaning to say, Simon is unique in his character compared to Cristomo Ibarra when he was in Nolimi Tangere. Because in Nolimi Tangere, he is kind and he has no plan to revolution. While in El Filibusterismo, he want to revolution and encourage people and who victims of Spaniard and the government. So the next is Basilio Caesar's son and was adopted by Capitan Tiago, boyfriend of Julie and aspiring doctor. So meaning to say Basilio is he finished medicine, which is as aspiring doctor. So the next character is Isagani, a poet and Basilio's best friend, portrayed as emotional and reactive student leader. Paulita Gomez, boyfriend, before being dumped for fellow students Juanito Felaes. So let's proceed the next character, which is Cabezang Tales or Cabezang Tales, a former cabeza de barangay head who was known as a Luzon bandit, Matanglawin.
So next to the characters, we have Don Custodio. Don Custodio, a famous journalist who was asked by the student about his decision for the Academia di Castellano. In reality, he was quite an ordinary fellow who married a rich woman in order to be a member of Manila's high society. So the next is Paulita Gomez. Paulita Gomez, the girlfriend of Isagani and nieces of Doña Victorina, the old India who passing racial identity, passes herself of a Peninsulares. In the end, she and Juanito Pilares were wed, and she dumped Isagani, believing that she will have no future if she married him. So for the next, we have Father Florentino. Father Florentino, Isagani's grandfather, and a scholar priest, was engaged to be married but chose to be a priest. After being pressured by his mother, the story hinting at the ambivalence of his decision, as he chose an assignment to be a remote place, living in solitude near the sea. Next is Julie. Julie, or Juliana de Dios, the girlfriend of Basilio, and the youngest daughter of Cabezang Tales.
So the next character of El Filibusterismo is Ben Jabe, Abraham Ibarres in his real name. He is a journalist who thought he was the only one thinking in the Philippines. And the next is Placido Penitente, a student of the University of Santo Tomas, who was very intelligent and wise but did not want, if not only by his mother's plea, to pursue his studies. And the next character is Quiroga, a Chinese businessman who dreamed of being a coconut of a consulate of China in the Philippines. He keeps Simon's weapon inside his house. And the next one is Tandang Celo, the father of Cabezang Tales. He raised the sick and young Basilius after his mother Sisa had died. Then the next is Father Fernandez, the first friend of Isagani. He promised Isagani that he and the other friends will give to the student demands. And the next character is Attorney Pasta, one of the great lower of mid-Hispanic Manila. So the next character is Captain General. It is no specific name. The powerful highest official in the Philippines. And the next is Padre Sabila or Father Sibila. Hernando de la Sibila, a Filipino friar and now Vice-Rector of the University of Santo Tomas. So let us now move to the synopsis of El Filibusterismo, which is the summary of El Filibusterismo. So the story in El Filibusterismo revolves around its main character, which is Simon. Simon, who is an influenced jeweler. Simon is actually Cristomo Ibarra. Of the Noli home, everyone through had been killed by the Guardia Civil at Laguna de Bay. He had escaped, fled to Cuba, become wealthy, and made connection with influential Spanish official. Upon his return to the Philippines after many years, he became very influential as the Governor General, who owns so much to him, consult him in making decisions. So in reality, however, everything Simons does is just part of his grand plan to take revenge against the Spanish official and rescue Maria Clara from the convent. Planning to stage a revolution, he smoothed Gay's arm and booked for followers mainly from the exploited and abusive natives. One of his results is Basilio, the son of Sisa, who with Capitan Tiago's help was able to study in Manila. Simon also made an alliance with the revolutionary group of Cabezantales, a former cabeza de barangay who would suffer maltreatments from the hands of friars. Using his influence, Simon encouraged corruption, decadent, and more oppressive government policies so that the citizen may become more infuriated. However, one night, the planned revolt was not carried out because Simon, upon hearing that Maria Clara is died in the nunnery, decided not to give the signal for the outbreak of the uprising. So another plan was made some months later at the venue of the wedding reception of Juanito Pelaez and Paulita Gomez. Simon planned many explosive enough to kill the invited guests. The invited guests, primarily the friars and government official. So according to the plot, the big explosion shall be started by the keep and would give and the newlywed and the reception or at the reception. A kerosene lamp with an explosive, when the lamp flickers and someone turns that wick, it will result into a big explosion that will become a signal to the revolutionary troops to simultaneously stand all the government building in Manila. So, during the conception, Simon gave his gift to the newlyweds before hurriedly leaving the venue. He leaves a piece of mysterious paper bearing the message, "You will die tonight," signed by Juan Cristomo Ibarra, which is Simon. Meanwhile, Isagani, the rejected lover of Paulita, is standing outside the reception. His friend Basilio tells him to leave the place because the lamp will soon blow up. When Father Salvi identified the handwriting in the note and confirmed that it was indeed Ibarra, the guests begin to panic. When the lamp flickers, Father Irene tried to turn the wick off, but Isagani, wanting to save Paulita's life, rushes into the house, grabs the lamp, and throws it into the river when it explodes. Simon takes poison that he would not be caught alive. As the poison effects start to take toll on his body, he confesses to Florentino his true identity and his plan of revenge through bloody revolution. After the emotional and agonizing confession of the dying man, the friars absolved the dying man from his sins, saying, "God forgive you, Senor Simon. He knows that we are fallible. He has seen that you have suffered. He has frustrated your plan one by one. First by the death of Maria Clara, then by a lack of preparation, then in some mysterious way led us how to his or let us bow to his will and render him thanks. In the final scenes of Dr. Jose Rizal's novel, El Filibusterismo or Subversion, the anarchist plot of Simon to bomb a wedding and kill the powerful of an imagined town in Philippine colonial times. In Preempted and Fails, he take poison and gas to the residence of Padre Florentino to die. So the moral lesson of this novel, which is El Filibusterismo, Dr. Jose Rizal's El Filibusterismo tell us that we should reflect on our action and beliefs for our country. The theme of the novel is to promote nationalism and to accept changes in ourselves. It still applies to us today. So the impact of novel or El Filibusterismo had a profound effect on Philippine society in terms of view about national identity, the Catholic faith and its influence to the Filipinos' choices, and the government issues in corruption, abuse of power, and discrimination, and on a larger scale, the issue related to the effect of Philippine society.
The story ends with priests throwing Simon's treasures into the sea, so that they would not used by the greedy. The priest hopes that when the right time comes, they would be recovered and used only for the good. That's the end of the story. So now that we are done, let's do a recap. Failure to get justice for his family. Early on August 1890, Rizal arrived in Madrid. Upon his arrival in Madrid, he immediately sought the help of the Filipino colony, the Asociación Hispano-Filipina, and the liberal Spanish newspaper. Marcelo H. del Pilar acted as his lawyer together with Dr. Dominador Gomez, the secretary of Asociación Hispano-Filipina, but he failed to receive justice for his family. Rizal's ideology to Panganiban. Jose Maria Panganiban, his friend and his talented co-worker in propaganda movement. Jose Maria Panganiban died on August 19, 1890 due to illness. He is a Bicol hero who died at the age of 27. Rizal wrote a great eulogy to Panganiban with a sorrowing heart. Aborted duel with Antonio Luna. End of August 1890, Rizal attended a social reunion of the Filipinos in Madrid, and wine was served. Luna was bitter because of his frustrated romance with Nelly Bosted. Rizal challenged Luna, his friend, to a duel. But unfortunately, Luna, when he becomes sober, Luna realized that he made a fool of himself during his drunk state. He apologized for his bad remarks about the girl. Rizal challenged Ritana for a duel. Wenceslao Iritana, a bitter enemy of Rizal in pen. He attacked Filipinos, including Rizal, in various newspapers in Madrid. La Epoca, an anti-Filipino newspaper in Madrid, he insulted Rizal's family. And because of that, Rizal challenged Ritana for a duel. Ritana believed that discretion is the better part of valor, and more to save his own skin. Ritana once published an apology in the newspaper that includes silence Ritana's pen, and he developed a great admiration for Rizal. Infidelity of Leonor Rivera. Rizal attended a play together with his friend at Teatro Apollo. Then he lost his gold watch chain containing the picture of Leonor Rivera and proven to be a bad omen. December 1890, Rizal received a letter from Leonor announcing her coming marriage with an Englishman, Henry Kipping. February 15, 1891, Blumentritt replied to the letter of Rizal and comforted him when he confided to him about his agony and broken heart. 3 months later, Blumentritt sent another comforting letter that saying Leonor Rivera is not a woman for Rizal. Rizal and Del Pilar rivalry. In the late 1890s, a rivalry developed between Del Pilar and Rizal. This was mainly due to the difference between Del Pilar's editorial policy and Rizal's political beliefs. On January 1, 1891, about 90 Filipinos gathered in Madrid. They agreed that a responsible be elected. Rizal abdicated his leadership. First week, February 1891, elections started. Filipinos were divided into two rival camps, the Rizalistas and Pilaristas. Ponce, Luna, and Sandico are Pilaristas, and they changed their votes in favor of Rizal. First day of voting, Rizal was winning. Second day, Rizal won, but vote cast did not reach the two-thirds votes. Mariano Ponce appealed to his countrymen to vote for Rizal. Third day, Rizal's victory, but Rizal graciously declined the converted position. Adios, Madrid. Rizal wrote a brief note thanking his compatriots for electing him as responsible. Suddenly, he packed up his bags, paid his bills, and boarded a train, leaving for Biarritz. First sojourn, he was happy, and his second visit, he was unhappy. Back to Brazil. February 1891, Rizal left Madrid and proceeded to Biarritz, where he was a welcome guest of the Boasted at their Villa Eliada. He wrote to Josep Ma Basa expressing his wish to live in Hong Kong and practice medicine. Middle of April 1891, Rizal returned to Brussels for one reason, to finish his second novel, which is El Filibusterismo.
So let us do recap in El Filibusterismo. So El Filibusterismo, also known as Subversive. It is the second novel of Jose Rizal as the sequel of Noli Me Tangere, and it was written in Spanish. Rizal began writing El Filibusterismo in October 1887 while he is in Calamba. On March 29, 1891, he finally completed his second novel, which is El Filibusterismo.
After he finished his second novel, the first person who read his novel is his roommate in Belgium, named
Jose Alejandro. On September 18, 1891, the novel was published in Gent and partially funded by Rizal's friend Valentin Ventura. And also on September 18, 1891, El Peli came up to France. Rizal immediately sent 2 copies to Hong Kong, one for Basa and other is to Sixto Lopez. The difference between Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. So the Noli or Noli Me Tangere is a romantic novel. It is a work of the heart, a book of feeling. It has freshness, color, humor, lightness, and etc. While the Filibusterismo is a political novel. It is a work of the head, a book of truth. It contains bitterness, hatred, pain, violence, and sorrow. and the intention was to make the pili longer, but Rizal had to cut down the eli due to lack of funds. And also, we tackle the manuscript of El Filibusterismo. The original manuscript of El Filibusterismo is the Rizal handwriting. Is now preserved in the Filipino division of the Bureau of Public Libraries in Manila. It had been acquired by the Philippine government from Valentin Ventura for 10,000 pesos. It consists of 275 pages of long sheet of paper. That's all for today's video.
We hope that you learned something from us. If you have any questions, clarifications regarding our report, please don't hesitate to ask us. Once again, I am Mansur Ismael Javier from College of Public Affairs and Governance, Bachelor of Public Administration.
And I am Naima Manginulinding from the College of Agriculture, Major in Extension Education.
Good day and stay safe, everyone.